Welcome to the Catchers U podcast. My name is Jack Ferrick, CEO of Catchers U. Today we've got a special guest, Jordan Comadena, and we may have a surprise guest midway through. We're excited, so we'll let that surprise sit for right now. But super excited, Jordan. We got to meet down in Dallas, and it was really cool. ABCA, and so I was walking around the trade show. And for anyone that hasn't been to the trade show at an ABCA, it's overwhelming. I mean,
Mhm.
there's anything and everything you could possibly want, need, don't want, but still will buy, is there,
Right. Yep.
in the trade show. And I was telling you before, I always go to those things, and I always swing by Valley, because they got the training mitts, and but there's not a ton of things that are specific, for catchers.
Mhm.
But I'm always trying to say, ooh, can I make that, a catching tool or
Sure.
whatnot? And then I ended up coming by your guys' booth and the catching plate. So if you want to tell me, just, or tell us a little bit about it, and then kind of, hop in on that.
Yeah, so to your point, I mean, the catching position is, I think one of arguably the most important position on the field, but at the same time, one of the, least coached or least taught positions. It's a position because there's typically only a couple guys on the team, and based on time and numbers, it's often a position that gets a little bit neglected from a skill development standpoint. Even at the big league level, it's sometimes hard to find time where, the catchers are always pulled in different directions. Of course, they want to go hit. There's pitchers that need to throw sides. They need to be part of team defense. They need to do this and that. Like, there's meetings. Like, it's just the days get stretched and time runs out, quickly. And so sometimes you have to be creative with how you make things, how you make time, work that you do. And so Jose and I wanted to create, with the help from fieldsportstraining.com, that's where the product's going to be on the website, a product to help facilitate catchers to, really work on and put a visual to their receiving. So what we made is a mat. It's color coded. Looks like a heat map to the edges, red, and then it turns into the blue as you get off the plate. Talks a lot about body angles, and there's arrows pointing, and on it there's a QR code that'll kind of run through a drill package and examples on how to best utilize the product, with Jose and I kind of diving into body angle to the edges, presetting our glove and creating a barrier with our glove, in their launch position when you load it, and really just the idea of putting your body before the pitch is even thrown in a position to have success and what that looks like. Just counteract and match the shape of the pitch and just be in a strong position.
Yeah, no, like I think what you were talking about is like the how lonely that position can be, and
Hmm.
there aren't a lot of opportunities uh like other positions. You take ground balls, normally you're doing it with a group of guys. You're taking
Yeah.
fly balls, you're doing it with a group of guys. And that's kind of where my catching academy kind of started, was kind of trying to get catchers together so they could kind of get that group training, that group mentality, where they could see stuff, they could watch people succeed, they could watch people fail, and
Yeah.
it'd be okay, but what I
Yeah.
love, like I really liked what your guys' mat was, because it's easy to move around. Anyone who's done any catching work knows that
Yeah.
plates get destroyed. So you're using
Hmm.
bucket lids and all kinds of
Yeah. That's
stuff,
right.
you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
but what kind of what you were just about to talk to, and I hope we can dive into a little bit more, is I feel like a lot of catchers, because they're working so hard on their skill progressions, and they're trying to increase their receiving range, however you want to do it, they're trying to get more, they're trying to convert more balls to strikes or whatever, even though we try to work on not losing strikes versus, we want to be
Sure.
in a kind of like you said, a good position. And the thing that I liked the most was not only the visual of the plate, but on the corners, you guys have the turn in, or you have the angle. And
Hmm.
and what I love about that, and I hope you go into this, if you go into this a little bit more, is sometimes we make life harder than we need to behind the plate. And I don't know if it's like a badge of honor or just, we've gotten hit in the head and that's why we're wearing a mask. But if you could kind of just talk about that, just a little bit of like bringing kind of back like angling and situating your body and setting the edge, kind of like what you were talking about.
Yeah. So the idea with the angles is kind of two pronged. One being you want to drive the umpire's sight line back to home plate. And so if your body can be in a position that is always directed from your chest, like your chest position, having direction toward home plate, you're going to be in a position where when you go to receive the ball and make your move through the catch, we want to try to stay on a vertical track through the ball and kind of press it away from us, out and up. And so the angle that we're creating helps take care of the horizontal movement of the ball. So it will eliminate some of the need for a big, loud move and having to, really look like we're moving the ball. The best guys move the ball, but in real time, it's happening so fast and they're so efficient. They're in such a good spot that they don't look like they're moving it that much. And to the umpire, it doesn't look like you're moving it at all. They see is where the glove stops. And it's like, well, I see where he's presenting the ball. That must be a strike. And then if
Right.
you watched it back on tape, in reality, he's maybe moving it 6, 8, whatever inches, 2.5, 3 balls, distance. So it's a little easier to create that angle on the glove side because naturally it's easier for a catcher to get kind of side saddle and to that glove side. But then to the arm side, we also want to try to create that same feel. It might not be quite as extreme, but we're going to be able to create that angle where that right shoulder's kind of rolled in. We've created a bit of a barrier. We can match the shape of the pitch by setting our glove out, maybe one ball off the plate. And so now anything that is working to that side of the plate, we can kind of tunnel it through the middle of our body and then drive out through it with a strong move. And again, the horizontal movement of the ball is going to be taken into account by the angle we're creating. And the ball is going to be working through the middle of our chest and like through our shoulder body line. And for anybody, that's going to be where you're physically strongest to leverage against the ball. When you start breaking outside your shoulder line, one, it looks like a ball to the umpire. So if you're having to pull something across from outside your body line and in, it's going to look off and look loud and like it's a ball. But if you're able to position yourself in a way that the ball is tunneling through the middle of your body, and then you can make a strong move up and through it, kind of pressing the ball back to the pitcher. The sight line's driven back to the plate. The move is strong because you're in a strong position, anchored in the ground. You're in the middle of your body. And when the ball's positioned and presented inside your body line, the chances of you getting those calls are much higher.
No, I think that's awesome. And I think it's like setting the edge. So like I got to play football growing up and you'd always talk about that. And what's cool about catching is I still feel like it's a position where a lot of multi-sport athletes still play. So you can kind of use different terms, for them. And it's like you
Yeah.
set the edge, anything that's outside the edge, that's a ball, just catch. But
Yep.
anything, that's inside that edge, now we can work through and we can drive. And I love the focus of kind of basically you're taking one plane out of the movement because when you angle, you're allowing yourself to you're just allowing yourself to minimize or simplify, what you're doing. And
Right.
I think that's
That's right.
where, I think it's great. And I can't believe I completely forgot, for everyone that is listening, Jordan, hasn't, he's a coach in the Pirates organization right now. He's I think we forgot to do the whole bio thing, but to hear that the guys at the highest level are trying to make it less and simple versus I feel like at the amateur level, a lot of kids are trying to do so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like take advantage of what is being given to you versus, hey, no, you just got to be able to do it all.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I tell our guys in Pittsburgh that we talk a lot about is, if you watch major league games with umpires and as umpires get better, right? I mean, as much grief as some umpires in the big leagues take for the zones and this and that, there's a lot of really good umpires. If you watch games on a nightly basis and you see the whole litany of crews that come through, like there's a lot of guys who are, they might be a little tight, but there's a lot of guys that strikes are called strikes. And if it's a ball, it's a ball. And it drives me nuts because I want them all, right? I want
Right.
our guys getting everything. But it's like, dang it, like that's a ball. Okay. So you have to be efficient. You have to move the ball fast. And these umpires, they feast on inefficiency. That's what I tell our guys. They feast on it because when guys are on a knee, they have no reference for where the zone is, right? They have no glove, they have no knees, it's just they're naked. They see a target, the target gets taken away, and now it's just the home plate and just this open space. And then next thing you know, it's boom, there's the glove presenting the ball. And it's like, okay, make the call, ball or strike.
Right.
And it's really hard. And when you can do that efficiently and repeat that process and put yourself in a position to make good, clean, fast moves, you're going to wear these guys down. It makes it really hard on them, and you're inevitably going to get some pitches, some calls. Now, at the same time, they are not afraid to, even if a pitch is in the zone and it's caught poorly, and you'll see somebody that's floating and they kind of dunk it down and bring it back up, and it's a full ball in the zone, and it's ball, and they don't even budge, like it's a ball, because they look and they're seeing that inefficient move and they're just assuming, well, that had to be down because the glove went away from the zone to catch it and he tugged it back up like it's ball. And then you see on the box, it's like a 90% strike on the bottom third of the zone, but it's like, well, yeah, he caught it terribly,
Right.
But then you have, conversely, maybe on the other side, you got a ball that's a ball below the zone and it's blasted up through fast and clean. And it's like, yeah, that's a strike all day. And you get it because it's like, look at the difference in the quality of the catch. Efficiency versus inefficiency, right? And so that's what we just continue to try to harp on and preach with our guys. And we practice like being efficient, strong, and fast with the move. The guys that score the best year in, year out, that are the most proficient, the glove speed and like the aggression and like almost violence that they are able to receive the ball with, and how fast their glove moves through that process, are the guys that it's a separator. Like those are the guys that score.
Thinking about like kind of at your guys' level with highly trained umpires, right? You know, getting them in a rhythm or getting them in a tempo has got to be one of the most important things, because obviously if you get them saying yes, it's a lot easier to get them saying yes than, no, no, no.
Right.
And, one thing, again, kind of like at that middle school, high school level where kids are discovering the weight room and they're not strong enough yet and everything, is where you kind of get hit with those inefficiencies and, those movements. And so, one thing we've tried to create is an ability to be consistent and try to put ourselves in a great spot. And so one thing that we pay a lot of attention to is, who we're catching and, how do they miss? And I think that's something that like
Yeah.
we focus really hard, where we try to get them to, I say like me and our instructors, we try to get them to communicate with us like, okay, how does Johnny miss? Does he miss up? Does he miss down? Is Johnny all over the place? Like how does Johnny miss? And because, the thing that we get a lot of pushback from parents, coaches, umpires is, well, these guys, their pitchers miss too much. The guys in the big leagues, they have way more control. And, but then I watch the stuff at the big league level, and is it that they have more control, or is it they just miss where they're supposed to miss, versus where at the amateur level, a guy should be throwing it here and it may miss all the way over here? That doesn't maybe happen as much, or maybe give some feedback on something like that.
Yeah. So that's an excellent topic that you brought up. I mean, that's a very advanced way of thinking. And if Jose's hops on here, he this would be a tremendous question for him too, because this is something him and I talked about last year, where, okay, so at the baseline, you're initially, you call the pitch, whatever it is, you're selling out to that desired pitch with the proper shape to the desired location, right? That's step one. Okay, I'm putting myself in a position to, if he throws it here, I am getting this pitch, right? You're say it's a right-handed pitcher, he's throwing a sinker, gonna be running to the inner half to a righty. All right, so I'm angled, my gloves down, I'm anticipating this ball being just driven right on that bottom rail, maybe one ball below it. Like, that's where I'm selling out. I'm getting it. Now, you're right. Understanding when he misses, where does he miss? Does he miss high, where it's kind of a runner and it takes off and it's on that side of the plate? Now, if your guys are missing, he's going to one side of the plate and he's missing on the opposite side of the plate, I don't care who's catching. There's not much you can do. You just got to try to just catch the ball. But if this is something I talked with our guys about last year as well. If you're positioned for that sinker down and into a righty, a right-handed sinker, okay, if I'm on time at the bottom of that load, anything that now runs through my body line on the vertical column, you have to imagine that the strike zone is broken up into 9 boxes, 3 horizontal columns and 3 vertical columns, or 3, so it's 9 boxes. Now I'm angled and I'm anticipating this ball to the bottom right corner from a right-handed hitter, down and in. Now, anything on that vertical column up through my body line, I should be able, if I'm on time at the bottom and I'm ready, I should be able to still have enough time to ride that rail vertically and hammer anything downhill if he misses in that vertical column. Does that make sense?
Right. Like, almost like a different way to think about it is like, there's a tunnel of where you go. And if it's inside that tunnel, you should be able to smash it. High, low, indifferent. Inside that tunnel, you should be able to smash it.
That's correct. Absolutely. So that's our thought. Now, if he's missing 18 inches to the opposite side of the plate, we just catch the ball. There's nothing, there's nothing you can do with that. You just catch it, throw it back. But if he misses in that lane that we're set in, from the bottom to the top, we should be on time and have enough time to go from the bottom to the top and still hammer that thing down and give ourselves a chance to make a strike in that column. And it would be the same on the other side, right? I mean, and then with off-speed stuff, when I was down in Texas, we went over and we're watching Jose do some of his work in the morning, and he was working on backed up, like extension side breaking balls that were backed up over the plate, and what that move and what that felt like. So he's to his arm side, anchored down, and then that pitch comes out high, kind of back over the plate, and he's working across and boom, and hammering that thing down like off his left shoulder, and just being efficient with beating that ball to the spot and being aggressive at the top and hammering it. So you're right. That's just catchers doing their homework, catching sides, catching in the game, making mental notes of, okay, Johnny's on the hill. When I call the sinker, this is what it looks like. But when he misses, we have all that information.
Right.
And, in the big leagues, you could have heat maps, like every guy's stuff with a large enough sample that, okay, when he throws the sinker, X% of the time it's here. And then when he misses, you'll see another little red blot. And this is where the miss is. When he throws his slider, this is where he lands it. This is where he misses. Same with there's always a desired location where he's trying to go with it. And then there's a miss spot. And so understanding kind of, you're prepared for the best case scenario, so you can be ready. You have to be anticipating the best spot to get that one. But then also in the back of your mind, all right, knowing if he misses, this is where he's going to miss. And then this is what I need to do to counteract that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too. And this is where, you guys having the map and getting kids to understand how the plate works differently, glove side versus arm side, and how your movements are similar but different, right? Because, if my glove's on this side, it's going to be different when I go here than when I'm here. And I think the other thing is, it's getting kids to understand it's okay to have more than, one type of pre-pitch or glove load, more than, one type of stance, or, and using the information from the pitcher, of, okay, what does this guy do?
Mm-hmm.
and how do I give myself the best chance to sync up with what that guy's doing. And you were
Yeah.
saying like one thing like we talk about is like if we have a guy who sets up and our catcher honestly thinks the pitcher is going to miss maybe on the inside part of the corner, a lot of times we just tell our guy, hey, just stay in the middle of the plate then. Right? Like if that
Mm-hmm.
guy is, because the one thing that a lot of catchers at the younger levels have, they're scared to miss because I think conceding in youth baseball is like not a thing anymore because of like you can't even be up 8 runs in the 6th inning and give up a run because runs allowed's like the first tiebreaker when it comes to like seeding.
Right.
So you got
Right.
you got kids that are like, oh my God, like if we want to be the 1 seed, like we're gonna go full choke here, bases loaded, up by 8 because we don't want to give up a run. So it's like conceding, and I think that's kind of that kind of seeps into all of them because they don't want to make a mistake or they don't want to just be like, eh, and I feel like a lot of times, because, obviously keyboard warriors, will attack, the big leaguers, they'll be like, oh, that's a pass ball or that's and the difference between like pass ball, wild pitch, and there's some concessions that happen. And hey, man, sometimes stuff happens. Like, I don't
Sure.
remember the last time a shortstop went through a whole season without making an error. And if someone has and they played 162 games, all right, I'm not a baseball junkie when it comes to statistics, but it's one of those things where it's like getting or getting kids to know that there's such a thing as acceptable failure,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you're prepared. And it's like, hey, why did you miss that pitch? Well, Johnny usually misses this way, so I was set up here and it just beat me. Okay.
Yeah.
Versus I just like my left knee down, and it's like
Yeah.
it's like, what I've seen, and I don't know if this has creeped in at the professional
Mm-hmm.
level, it's guys, especially when they're getting to their left knee down, so that glove
Mm-hmm.
side knee down, like anchoring too low and almost working uphill to their arm side. I don't know if that's something that you guys are like catching as much as, and obviously the kids that I'm training aren't at the same athleticism level, but it's like I see a lot of guys starting to kick back and deep or low, not even deep, because deep's I like the word deep because a little bit more athletic, with the chest, but it's like
Uh-huh.
they start working more uphill to their arm side, and that right side kind of is out in front a little bit. So we try to work on always making sure the left side, that left shoulder is out just enough so that we're always downhill when we make our move out.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. There's stuff, because I know you guys positioning and stuff like that. Is there stuff like that that you talk about with the mat or just in general?
Yeah. I mean, I think the knee down thing is, especially with nobody on, is strictly about comfort, right? I mean, I don't think there's one setup or stance that's necessarily better than the other. I think it's just something that kids and players need to experiment with. Like you said, it's all about putting yourself in an optimal position to feel strong, feel athletic, feel freed up, stay low, and find that happy medium where I'm just in a strong, good, optimal position to receive the ball. Because with nobody on, it's all about receiving. That's the only, that's your only job at that point. And so how you go about playing with that is just through some trial and error. Play with it, set up different ways. One thing that we've kind of kicked around, and actually Jose was working on this when we were down there a little bit, was that extension side with his left knee down. And it's something that I've thrown at a few of our guys when they're on their right knee down, but some ways that you can kind of open up your hips a little bit to sink your chest and your hips lower into the ground by playing with whichever uh, foot is up, the whichever leg is up. So if your left knee down, your right foot, you can open that right foot up a little bit and roll the right knee out a little bit. It'll allow your right hip to kind of sink down a little bit more, almost like instead of having your toes facing the pitcher, have your toes kind of at a 45-degree angle, like they're at the second baseman. So your hips can sink down a little bit. You can still roll your chest in. It'll kind of clear that knee out of the way a little bit and give you a little bit more room. And conversely, on the other side, we've talked with some of our guys that are right knee down guys. That left foot, your left knee is up, opening up that left foot so you can clear that left knee out of the way. And again, sink your chest down, sink your hips down. That knee gets out of the way, and now your hand and your glove is just free, and you've got nothing in your way. You're unencumbered in front of you to really be strong and let your hands open up and work. So, and again, it's just something that some guys just find those positions naturally. Some, you see some things and you think he looks just a little bit tied up in a given spot or for whatever reason, and just some minor, adjustments from a body and posture standpoint can really make some significant adjustments for how freed up guys can feel.
It's just good to hear, because I think catching is one of those very weird positions where I think a lot of other positions are influenced from amateur up, but I feel like catching is one of those positions that it trickles big league down, right? Like one knee really didn't get it going until Mitch Garver did it for a season and then won a Silver Slugger. And then it was like, okay, all right, let's see what this is about, and I think, it's like you see something like the pitching stuff, hitting swings, and it's like the youth game can sometimes impact the professional game, but it's kind of cool to see that catching seems to still trickle more. Okay, what's being done at the highest level, and now let's try to mimic and do these things. It's almost like we get our thumbs up from you guys, and then it's like, all right, let's see if this works. Let's let's try it, because one of the debates I get into all the time, and you have a catcher who's 12 years old or 11 years old, and they're like, he shouldn't be on a knee. And I go, okay, cool. How many games did he catch this weekend? Well, we made championships. We played 5 games. He caught 4. I go, so he caught 4 games in a 24 to 48 hour period. And they're like, yeah. I go, there's nobody that, should be doing that from that, traditional setup, especially a young kid who hasn't had time to build the leg strength. And I think that's the funniest thing is I always say, it's like, hey, I agree with you. They need to get their legs stronger, but not while they're playing, and but I love the traditional stance too, because I think I think you said earlier, like some guys just find positions that create athleticism. And there's some guys who can feel the backside of their legs better when they're in a traditional setup and they move better, now they may get tired or whatever. And hey, we say there's Mr. Squat Bar over there, he'd become a friend,
Right.
but I think that's the coolest part is that, and I think also that you guys aren't scared to try stuff, and work on, you're very proactive in your setups versus, well, I'm just gonna leave my glove here and I'm praying that he hits a spot. You guys are like, hey, this is the vertical column that he's supposed to be in, and I'm gonna nail that. And anytime he's in that column, just count it as a strike. But I'm also going to prep so that if it's out of that column, I can have some adjustability so that I can now catch and hold on. Even if I can't get it back in the zone, hey, I can hold that ball, catch it, catch and show. If he chases, catch, show the umpire, which is cool. And I think that's a really cool thing that, younger kids and parents at home hearing this is like, there's so many ways to problem solve. And that, and again, coming all back to what we started with your guys' map, I think forcing kids to look at where they are in relation to the plate and the strike zone, and then to get drills from you. And we don't know if he's going to end up showing up, but the guest and Jose that Jordan keeps talking about is Jose Trevino, 2022 American League or Gold Glove winner. So with the Yankees. So that right there is, you know, you guys being able to provide that feedback and to give those drills and almost maybe just spark the thought processes or the potential creativity, right?
Hmm.
I think is really cool. And like I said, you know, I don't want to keep you too long because you and me both,
No, no, you're
we have
good.
kids home, you know,
Yeah,
but
no, you're good. To
but
your point earlier, like something I wanted to just add on to what you said about something that I preach to our guys, and we'll have this conversation the day one of spring training is, you know, being incredibly intentional with our work, and everything that we do behind the plate has a why. So like what you're saying about, okay, Johnny, explain to me that situation. What happened there? Well, I don't know. I was sitting on this knee and no, that's okay. Wrong answer. Like there needs to be, okay, he's throwing a sinker. The pitch is moving this way. I'm putting my body in this position. Like this is whether it's a conscious or a subconscious thought, that process needs to run through your head to some degree on every single pitch. Okay, this is the pitch that's called. This is the desired location. I'm putting my body. I'm moving with tempo. I'm getting to my spot. I'm setting my angle. I'm setting my glove barrier. I'm being on time. I'm seeing the ball. Boom. I'm making my move. Okay, throw it back. Reset. Next pitch. You call it, and it's that same Okay, now sinker to the other side. Boom. Move quick. Set my every pitch. There is a why behind. Nothing is just like I don't know. No, like why did you do what you did? Hold your ground, make your move, be strong. Every single pitch we're giving within reason, we're giving it the opportunity to be called a strike. And putting our body in a position to make that happen, and the tempo, the angles that we're working at, just the whole process, there's reason behind every single component. And so the guys that can really embrace that and do that on a pitch to pitch basis, man, like those are the ones that really have a chance to impact the game. And that's what we want to do. Like it's something, we talk about in the video, like catchers, your shortstop theoretically is your best athlete, maybe, right? He's like your best player, whatever. That's kind of the prototypical, like for us, O'Neal Cruz, our shortstop, is a freak. I mean, he's incredible, right? Fastest, hits the ball the hardest, throws it the hardest, runs like a deer. Like he's an alien. I mean, he's an unbelievable athlete. But he might go 9 innings and not have a single ball hit to him, or no ball hit in the gap, or he has to make 100-mile-an-hour relay throw to the plate. Like he just was out there, and okay, that's all he has to do today, because that game is what he did at the plate. That's his only opportunity to impact the game. From a catching standpoint, we know now there's going to be varying degrees of maybe your pitcher's doesn't have his best stuff, or there maybe aren't as many scoreable opportunities, but there's going to be some. Going in, I have a chance to impact this game every single night with what I'm doing defensively from a game planning standpoint, and certainly from a receiving standpoint. There might not be any opportunities to throw. There might not be any opportunities to block, but there's going to be opportunities to receive without a doubt. That going in. Okay, so I'm going to put myself in the best position possible. My mindset is going to be such that I'm going to dominate this game from a receiving standpoint every single night and impact this game with my defense. And I know that's how Jose thinks. I mean, he's a monster. He's the best. He wants to just dominate the zone. He's playing offense against the ball when he's catching. Aggressive, physical, strong, efficient. Like he is for kids that like watching baseball and want to watch catchers. I mean, every game he's out there, it's a master class in receiving. And you want to talk about somebody who is intentional and calculated with what he's doing. I mean, there's nobody more so than him. And so he's one of my favorites to watch, and just talking to and listening to him and checking his numbers and watching tape on him. You can always learn things from watching these guys, with how they set up, how they move, how they work, the moves that they're making with their glove. But it all comes back to everything has a why. There's a reason behind everything that you're doing.
And I love it. It's cool because we talk about the why, like why, we've gotten to the point now where we're trying to teach kids not so much like obviously the how, right? How to do this, how to set up, but we always tell them once they understand the why, then it's theirs. And then they own
Yeah,
it.
that's
Because
right.
what, and it's like, why I'm doing this because of this. Okay. Well, now it's yours. You own it. And
That's right.
you
Yeah, I
know,
like that.
being a
Hmm.
part of the game on every pitch. And I think that's why, at least in our area, we've seen an increase in kids who want to try to catch. And one, I think it's because we are letting guys be more athletic back there so they don't feel, like they're trapped as much. And but it's a
Hmm.
lot of young kids who struggle focusing, right? Like you said, like I'm playing shortstop, I'm the man. If I don't get a ground ball, defense is boring.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
boring if I'm not getting the ball,
right.
and there's a lot of kids that they gravitate to pitching and they gravitate to catching because they're they're a part of the play every play,
Yeah,
and I think kids are starting to because they're getting to a level of skill, right? Like guys are being able to do some stuff, some pretty elite movements at a very young age. And I think because of that, some coaches are starting to take advantage of that and bring them back into more of the game planning. There's a lot of high school coaches who are starting to let their better catchers call games.
yeah,
I know at the collegiate level, that's still a really big toss up. A lot of pitching coaches, are calling the game, and so when they get to, uh, you know, pro ball, I mean, I would assume that's a thing that you guys have to work on,
oh
as
yeah,
well as like you said, the whole preparation where it's not just and again, I'm not taking anything away from infielders or anything like that, but because they got to know where guys are tendency to hit and everything, but understanding the amount of game planning, and then not only that, but how that game plan works with whichever arm is on the mound and how you can attack with that arsenal,
right.
that's coming in, and but I think it's like we've seen, like I said, we've seen some really good athletes who normally would play shortstop or maybe play center field. They want to stay behind the plate, they want to catch, and
Yeah,
you know we've been very fortunate to keep these kids engaged up here, right? And we use a lot of 3-ounce balls and foam balls when we're blocking, so we don't run them out. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
We,
No, that's great.
you know,
That's
but
great. Yeah,
we get them to say, hey, like, and understand like when blocking usually occurs, right? And it's like this is going to happen because of this, right? The
hmm,
Johnny is going to do this, and you're going to see it, and that's why I always tell kids, man, I was like, the hardest thing in the world for you guys is going to these college camps or these showcases where you're not going with your teammates and you're just there. And I'm like, you
yeah,
have to learn on the fly as fast as possible to be able to receive, because there's no like, oh hey, like I always laugh, like we're shooting a machine and the kid be like, can I see one? I'm like, yeah, you're just gonna ask the pitcher to throw one off the backstop real quick. Hey, can I see one? Like no, like we're not gonna like smoke you, but like at the same time, right? Like, hey, like so it's just like you said though, like there's so much more that goes into it. And again, what I really love about what you guys have is it's a tool that you can do at home. It's a tool that, you know, um, mom, grandma, dad, sister, brother, can sit on the couch and flip you balls, and you paying attention to where you are on the plate, getting that feedback, and then being like, ooh, and then hitting the QR code and going, hey, I got to do this or I got to do
hmm,
this, and then for me, utilizing something like that in our academy where it's just another thing that allows us to create a mental focus, or I liked your word better, create more intent. Like even we have plate setup. We have so many guys that I'm like, hey man, I was like, Valentine's Day is coming up. You trying to date the plate right now? Like, what are we doing? Like, like let's get set up the way we should be so that you get a
Right.
feel for, what is a strike, what's not a strike,
Hmm.
and we bring in, those, the mannequins, the stuff all
Yeah.
the time, so that we can kind of get more of that vertical. But I do think
Hmm.
we lose a lot on the horizontal. And I think eliminating the horizontal plane so you can focus just vertically is something
Yeah.
that is such a huge advantage if that's what you're able to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, with the mat, I think one of the biggest things for kids, and it's something again that we do with our guys, like every receiving rep, and really from a blocking and throwing standpoint, like every rep that we're doing when we're behind the plate is starting from giving a sign and then moving to your spot. So the mat provides such a good visual for kids and for our guys. I mean, we're going to use them this spring, but to see, like, am I getting to the proper position, and how efficient can I be from once I give the sign and getting to my spot? And that's something that kids, can just do on their own at home. Find a mirror so you can maybe see it in the other direction, and you're using the mat and like give a sign and set up. Okay, I'm going to my glove side. Boom, set up, get to the spot. How efficient can I be? How quick can I be? Set my angle without all this extra movement and settling in and wiggling down, whatever. Like, get there to the other side. Same thing. Like, how efficient can I be in getting to that spot? Right. And being athletic, being smooth, being quiet. Because hitters, as you get older, hitters feel movement, they hear movement. And the later you can move, the faster you can move, the more efficient you can move. And then when you get to those optimal positions, it's the perfect storm of, okay, I'm not tipping anything away to the hitter. I'm in a good physical position to receive the ball. Now it's just about, seeing the ball and going and catching it, making a move. And I loved what you said about, with these kids making, once they know the how and making it their own. That's so true. I mean, we don't want them to be robots by any means. Like, it is a very uh, athletic position. The position has really changed over the last 5, 6, 7 years in baseball, where you see a lot of guys that used to be infielders who are now catchers because they had great hands and they're athletes. The body types are much different than they used to be. Like, they're physical, athletic guys who can move, that are quick in their space. They might not be great runners, but in their space behind the plate, they're tremendous athletes. They're mobile, they're quick, they have tremendously strong hands, fast hands. And a great example last year, Austin Hedges was our starter until, the trade deadline, whatever. And he was just a joy to work with. Was great, very a veteran, high level of aptitude, but wanted information, wanted to know why. And we put him on a knee all the time. He hadn't really done that all the time previously. So we were like, you're going to be on a knee all the time. And as through spring training and into the early parts of the season, and we're talking angles and we're talking about all this same stuff. And one day he's catching Mitch Keller, and Keller's throwing these like 21, 22-inch horizontal sweeping sliders that are just nasty. And Hedges, I'm noticing him during the game, like he's calling the pitch, he's right knee down, and then when Mitch is kind of at release, he slides on his right knee out a little bit further, maybe 3 or 4 inches, just to create a little bit more space for him. So he gives him the target. Mitch sees it, he throws it, and then at the release, he slides out a little bit further to give himself a little bit more room, and he'll just blast those balls back to the plate. And like the game moves very slow for Austin, and like he's tremendous pocket awareness, very strong. And I'm asking him about it after the game. I was like, dude, that is so awesome. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
You're like,
like
yeah.
it's so awesome. Like, he made it his own. He thought, okay, there's a problem here. I can't. His sweeper is moving so much that I can't set up out there. I'm going to be in the other batter's box if I can't set up over there. But how can I figure this out? How can I combat the shape of this pitch and still give him a target that drives him over the plate, but then get myself to the position where the ball's going to be strong and make a move on these things? And I'm like, dude, like that's awesome. Like, that's exactly
So
what we're
cool.
talking about. That's such high level, thinking, adaptability, athleticism, feel, like all of that stuff was just awesome. And it was something he did with a few other guys, but did it the rest of the year. And like, it was great. He
That's
made it
awesome.
his own. He figured out the problem and figured out a solution. So
And
very cool.
that's the name of the game is problem solving, right? And getting
Yeah,
them to and getting catchers the freedom to understand, what they can and can't do in the sense of what works, what doesn't work, and fail. And that's what training's for. It's
hmm,
it's there to fail. And you know, we the catching position is one where, and this is why again, like we focus on creating situations where they almost have to fail.
sure,
Because
absolutely.
where when we're together and we're doing catching work and it's just a bunch of catchers, that's the only time you're allowed to fail and it only impacts you,
Yeah,
right? Like if you because we have a lot of kids that are really good players and they're like, I'm getting my work in, I'm catching bullpens. And I'm like, bullpens are awesome and bullpens are needed and bullpens are a staple of getting prep for the season. So I'm not going to knock bullpens. The one thing I tell guys, especially younger players, is when are you able to fail? Because as soon as you get in there with
yeah,
a pitcher, now you're merged, you're married to that guy's training, and he's gonna throw it. And if you're failing consistently and you don't have a way to problem solve, right? One of two things are gonna happen: either that guy's never gonna throw to you again, or you're gonna have to earn that guy's respect, right? And you show up and keep doing stuff and whatever. So it's like
yeah,
I, it's like that. It's good. It's cool to hear that. It's like, yeah, like we are a team first position, right? Everything that we do is for the team. Like you were saying, like catcher gets pulled for a side sesh, or gets pulled for this or gets pulled for that. Has to get there earlier because he's got a game plan. More than everyone. Like, and that's you should want to do that. You should want all of that. As a
hmm,
catcher, but it's like give yourself some time to put yourself in situations where you can be selfish in your own development so you can figure out your own problems versus trying to figure out your problems and your team's problems.
right. Yeah, making the training beyond uh, what they would probably see in a game at any level, I think, is so important to helping guys slow the game down. I mean, you alluded to the foam balls earlier from a blocking standpoint. We use the foam balls daily with receiving stuff and just crank up the velo, crazy shapes like sinkers, cutters, like nasty sinkers that nobody can replicate. Like that's a 80 sinker that's just humming in there off this machine. And it's like, okay, let's make a move on it. Let's catch these, and there's no harm of getting thumbed and getting beat up. Like it's a foam ball. It's like 2 ounces or something,
Right.
but they love it because it's challenging. And we use the normal glove. We use like the all-star keyhole glove. It's great with the net, catch them in the net.
Right.
Um, and it's great. Like it's one of the things we do daily with the receiving. We try to vary different machine angles, super high, super low, so they kind of ride, different shapes and the high velo with the foam stuff, like things to just do the same things differently, right? Make the same moves, make the same path of the ball. The intent's the same, the objective is the same, but how it's presented to them is always different to try to create variability, create problem solving, right? I mean, put them in different situations to see different pitches, different shapes, different speeds, and for them to figure out, okay, this is what I need to do to combat this. Because things are going to show up in the game, and just to have all those, resources in your, mind toolbox to go to and be like, okay, here's that pitch. I've seen this before. Here's the move I need to make. Boom, do it. And it's so important. I mean, and I love spring training, like you said, with the group dynamic. Like, during the season for us, it's just two guys and one guy's playing that day. So if the other guy, and he'll do some work pregame, but the other guy, if he wants work, it's just him and I and in the bullpen and maybe a couple others that are hanging around. But like it is lonely. It's just like, all right, come
Right.
on, get some work in. And he might catch the side and hang out after, but it's like, all right, It's just you and I. Let's go get some work in. Where at spring training, we've got 7 or 8 guys, and building that camaraderie is awesome. And getting feedback, like you said, having conversations. I encourage our guys to, if they're not up on that drill or whatever, play umpire. Get behind the catcher that's working and talk to them. Hey, what do you see? Give them feedback. Be umpire. Try to call balls and strikes. Where do you have those? And we're videoing everything so they can watch it. What we had a cool little, our video guy got us some ocular lens glasses camera.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
the guys that were behind would wear them as the umpire. So they were like a pair of sunglasses that had a camera in them, and you could video it, and you're videoing like you're the umpire cam, and then watch just to kind of see what's it look like. What's the umpire see when I'm catching?
The
So they
Pirates are
can
James
watch.
Bond training over here.
It was cool. I caught a bullpen with them on one time, just to kind of. It was
Test the
cool.
waters.
You couldn't. Yeah, it was interesting. You see the ball coming in, and on the camera, it's neat. It's a different perspective, but awesome. Anything like that from a feedback standpoint with your teammates is so important. Talking, catching, and that's how many problems are solved. I mean, guys learn so much in those settings where it's just watching somebody else do something, or as a coach, well, having to present a message, the same message differently to maybe 7 different guys. You present it to them. I know the hitting space is very much like that, but even with catching, there's ways at any position you're presenting them an idea, and the way you describe it might be different to you as it would be different to somebody else, just to find a way to resonate with them. And maybe something that is said to somebody else resonates with you, and if you're paying attention and you're there and you're engaged in what's going on, like, hey, I like that. And then you go talk to your coach. Hey, what you said to Johnny about this, that, like, that's what we're talking about, right? Yeah. Okay. So now, as a coach, all right, that's going to be his cue. That resonated with him, and like all that stuff happens. It's great. Such a great atmosphere and like a culture to be around to learn, and put tools in your tool belt, because that's really what it's all about. It's just developing those experiences and learning and continuing to adapt and continuing to find ways to get better.
Dude, this is awesome. I think you and I could probably talk all day on catching.
Yeah.
We're having a blast. So last question I got for you. How are we going to be
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh this year? How the Pirates going to be?
Okay. So, we're going to be a tough, competitive group. We're, I think, still in the market for some starting pitching. But I think we have a real, I think a really solid core of position players for sure. That our lineup, getting Cruz back, is going to be a big help. It's going to make our lineup a lot longer, and we've got Sawinski, who's got real power. Reynolds is a really good player. Key Bryant obviously is one of the best, won the Gold Glove. I mean, he's the best third baseman in baseball, and had a really strong second half offensively. And then we got like Josh Palacios had a great second half last year. Jared Triolo had a great second half last year. Like, there's a lot of guys. And then, Henry Davis is going to he's really worked hard this offseason with the catching stuff. And he's really excited. I'm really excited to get down and start working with him, and getting him, maybe ready to be one of our catchers this year in Pittsburgh. Obviously, the Endy Rodriguez injury is a big blow for us, because we had very high hopes for him. I think he's going to be a very special player. Great kid, tremendous worker, personality, great athlete. Like, he's so young. He's 23. He's going to continue to get bigger and stronger and mature. That I think he's really got a lot of upside for us in the future. But we'll be without him this year. But our bullpen development has been strong over the last few years. We found, ways to put guys in positions to have success. We just need to continue to round out the rotation. Marco and Martin are going to be great additions to go with Mitch. And then how we round out the rest of that rotation, I think, still yet to be seen. But the NL Central is always competitive. I think our schedule, for the most part, is fairly favorable. I feel like a lot of our big West Coast trips and like long trips, or a lot of them are in the first half of the season. I was just looking at the schedule the other day. So like the second half, I feel like a lot of it were in the Eastern time zone within our division are on the East Coast. Like the travel's fairly light, which is nice, as the season gets long, not having to, like last year, we were back and forth to the West Coast a bunch throughout the year. And that can just sometimes get tiring and, tedious. So I feel like our schedule is fairly favorable, but we'll see. There's certainly going to be expectations. I know a lot of guys have come out publicly this year and said the expectation is to be in the playoffs, and I love hearing that from those guys, because they're the ones that are obviously out there performing and doing it, and there has to be belief, has to be buy-in. And when it comes from the players and that kind of message is being actively talked about amongst the group, amongst the core players that are going to be a big part of what we're going to do this year, that's awesome. So I know everybody's excited to get down to Florida. We're, what is it, the 16th, for under a month. I think our first workout is the 14th of February. So it's getting close.
It's getting there
that
fast.
Time of year again. Yeah, it's gone very fast. Every year the off season goes faster and faster, I think. So
that's wild.
It's very cold here in Indiana today. I think it's like 0 outside right now.
Yeah, it's not.
My daughter's,
it's not much warmer in Virginia.
It's cold. So 70 in Bradenton and sunshine sounds all right.
That's when you're like, hey Siri, what's the weather like? Yeah,
that's right. I have it on my phone at all times just so I can check on it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, no, hey, I think the MLB is always better when the Pirates are in the playoffs. So hey man, Jordan, it was an absolute blast talking to you. And we're going to make sure that, we blast out everything we can on our stuff for the mat. And then obviously we're going to definitely stay in touch and
absolutely,
and I think it was just great to kind of talk catching, talk about your product. But again, really appreciate, you coming on and sharing information, because this is just going to give more information to the catchers out there, and again, I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and make sure we bust Jose's balls a little bit for
we'll get him on here. We'll
too
do this
hard,
again. Yeah, we'll get him on here the next time. I'll would love to come back anytime. This has been great. Awesome. Fieldsportstraining.com is going to be the website for the product. It'll be available like mid to the end of April is when it'll be available for sale. It's also going to be on Amazon, but fieldsportstraining.com is where you can go and read up on it, learn some more about the product, order it through there, and then we'll do this again anytime, and I'll make sure we get Jose on here too next time.
Awesome, brother. Well, hey, again, can't thank you enough, man. Hope all's well. Hope you get to 70 degrees sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's right.
And no, hey, it was awesome. And so for everyone that was listening, that's the end of the Catchers U podcast for today. Jordan, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.